Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at Irish Gauge. This is put out by Capstone Games, and it is designed by Tom Russell, artworks by Ian O'Toole, and this is basically a stock market game that is in Ireland using the different railway systems. So that's what piqued my interest. I know this is not on my regularly beaten path, so to speak, as far as game choice is concerned, but it piqued my interest because it's Irish and it looks cool. So let's go ahead and get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts after that. So here I have a 4-player game of Irish Gauge set up for you. Now, at the beginning of the game, there is an initial auction where one of each of the different stocks are auctioned off. I've simulated that, not to show it to you, but that is done. Now, what we are basically doing here is we're trying to gain the most money. And money is points at the end of the game, and whoever has the most money is the winner. By doing that, what we're trying to do is build up these railway lines so that they connect to as many cities and towns that have enough of these special interests that will score whenever dividends are drawn, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Now, the game will continue in a number of rounds until there are no more of these dividend cubes in the bag. Once there are no more left, that's the end of the game. No extra turns or anything like that. We tally how much money everybody has, including the initial value of the stocks that have been purchased throughout the course of the game, and whoever has the most is the winner. Now, on your turn, you're going to have 5 different options to choose from. The first one is auctioning off a share. When you auction off a share, the minimum bid has to be the large printed number that's on the card. It can, of course, go up from that, but realize that at the end of the game, it is only going to be worth whatever the large number is on the share. Another thing that you can do is place railway track on the board. Now, in order to do that, you have to own a share in the company of the railway that you want to build up. So, for example, this player over here can only build on the blue and purple lines, whereas this person can only build on yellow, that person can only build on red, and this person can only build on orange and only yellow over here. Now, in order to do that, you have a payment that you have. You have basically 3 build points that you can use during the course of your turn. And if it is empty spots that you're going through, this is the amount that you have to pay. If it is not empty, if it's already occupied by one of these little train meeple thingies, then this is the amount that you have to pay in order to put that rail down. Notice that difficult terrain, these spots right here, once they have one type of train in it, another cannot be placed there. So that's of note. So for example, let's say that this player over here wanted to build track on their turn. They have 3 build points. They could take this and go 1, 2, 3 like this, or they could go 1, 2, 3 like that, or they could go 1, 2, 3 like this. Another thing that you can do is you can place a special interest cube, one of these things, out of the bag. Now, you don't have to blindly draw this. You can actually look in there and choose which one of these cubes you want to put out on the bag, realizing that it's going to lower the likelihood of that color of cube coming up when dividends are called, which we'll get to in just a few moments. But if you wanted to do that, you would simply take a cube out of the bag, whatever you chose. For example, if you wanted to do pink, you could just put pink right here in one of the town icons. Now, another thing that you could do on your turn is call for dividends. And at this point, calling for dividends, you would take the bag and you would draw blindly or randomly out of the bag. You would draw 3 cubes and place them over here on the drawn dividend cubes board here on the first row, like so. Now, let's just say that this is the state of the board when these 3 cubes are drawn for dividends. At this point, we would need to come down here to this track and determine the value of each of the different stocks that are owned by different players. In order to do that, each town that has a cube that is the same color as one of the three that are drawn scores. Cities, ones that actually have special interest cubes in them, score 4 pounds each. Towns that don't have any special interest cubes in them yet score 2 pounds each for each of the different lines. So, for example, we'll do purple first. We have purple that has a town over there, so they have 2, 4, 6, so that's $6. And then this one doesn't add anything because its color was not drawn. But this one, and this one do add to it. So that is 4 times 3, that's 12. And then plus 6 is 18. So purple is worth 18 shares over here. Yellow, however, would be worth 4, 8, 10 shares. Red would be worth 4, 8, 2 more, so that's 10. So we put that right here with the yellow one. Blue would be worth 2, 4, 8, 10, 14, like that. And then orange is worth 4, 8, 10, 12. So orange would go right in here just like that. And then after that calculation is made, you simply look at the number of shares that are owned total. So if 3 shares are owned, if one person owned 1 of them, they would get $6. And the other person owns 2 of them, then they would get $12. So it's just basically the amount is split up by how many shares are done, and it's the charts there to help you with that math. And that's pretty much the last thing that you're able to do on your turn. There is one other thing that's a possibility. You'll notice that these 3 major cities are red, and if one line connects all 3 of them, that will immediately cause a major city dividend call, which means that anybody who owns the line that connects those will split up 12 pounds evenly as possible. But that's basically all that there is in the game. You're going to be building track to try to connect as many different cities and towns so that your specific stock will score the most during those call for dividends. The game will end, as I said before, when all of the dividend cubes are out of this bag, and then whoever has the most points in dollars, or pounds rather, will be the winner. And that's how you play Irish Gauge. So that's about that for Irish Gauge. Now, as I said before, this is not my normal fare for reviews, but it caught my eye because, first of all, it had a very simple rule set. The rules are literally one piece of paper, front and back. The font is not that large, and it is very well organized as far as how everything works in the game. So my interest was piqued because I like the look of the game. First of all, it has a abstract and yet elegant look to it. It's not flashy, and it's not aesthetically, wow, look at that game, but it does look inviting in a homey kind of way almost. So I was intrigued by it, so I wanted to get it to the table, so I did. So moving on to my pros and cons here. My first pro is the artwork and graphic design. Now, more often than not, you look at a game like this and that's not the first thing that pops to you. But with me, I wasn't necessarily interested so much in the mechanisms of the game. I like auctions, don't get me wrong, but just accruing wealth and buying stocks and that type of thing doesn't really appeal to me as far as the game is concerned. So everything else kind of had to converge on this for me to be interested in it. The box was the first thing, of course, that I saw, the outside of the box, and that's what really kind of brought it to the forefront. Irish Gauge. Well, my heritage, I have an Irish heritage, and so that piqued my interest. It's a railway game. Okay, I don't dislike railway games, so there's that, but the graphic design of the outside of the box is what really first kind of brought me in. Then I looked at the back and I saw that they had little train meeples and all that kind of stuff, and that pulled me in a little bit further. I liked the abstract quality of the board. It wasn't drab. It had color. It had vibrancy to it. I don't know what it is, but green just has a vibrant look to it. So that's why I liked it more than something else that maybe has a very similar look with a different color palette used. But not only was it just the board, it's all the little different splashes of color that were used for the different railway lines that are being used throughout the board. The different interest cubes had other colors as well, pink mainly. The other ones are just black and white. But all of those had, it wasn't boring to look at. And that's why I liked it. The second pro for this game for me is the fact that it is very easy to teach and it's very easy to play. And I say that a lot about games, but it really is a positive point for me because I don't want to have to dredge through a complex rule book like I'm studying some kind of technical manual to be able to understand how to play your game. And this one has a lot of depth to it as far as what you can do, but it's not hard to teach or hard to have people understand what they're trying to do in the game. It's very, very simple. And I know some people might say, well, then it's not complex. It can't be deep if it's so simple. But I think it is, because there's a lot of different kinds of ways that this game is going to have different variations on it. I mean, setup alone, the kinds of cubes that come out when you pull for dividends, who is going to be adding special interest cubes to the different cities, thereby lessening the likelihood of that cube coming out during a dividend call. All of these things are kind of converging. It's going to make each game feel a little bit different from the last. It's not going to be widely or vastly different, I get that, but it changes and it evolves, so to speak. So I like how the gameplay has that depth to it, but it's very simple to teach and it's very easy to learn. My third pro for this game, it kind of piggybacks on my second one, and that is, this is a stock market game that I don't think takes itself too seriously. It does not take a long time to play. It is not difficult, and often you find stock market games that try to account for too much, and this one doesn't. It is very simply, you're auctioning off different shares. You want to own as many shares in a specific line. You want to build up that line as much as possible so that it connects to as many different towns and cities. And then you want to build up those towns to cities so that it'll score more heavily during those call for dividend rounds. It has all of that, but it's not this, I have to consult this chart over here to see what this does. And then I have to take that number and consult this chart over here to see how much I can get from this if I have that and this. It doesn't do all that. There's literally one chart on the board that you have to consult in order to find out how much money you made. Now, I will say, and we'll get to this in the con section a little bit of foreshadowing, initially understanding how all of those points are tallied and how all of those values are tallied was confusing. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's just one chart, and once you understand how it works, it's good to go. And this game will play easily within an hour. Or less, especially if you know what's going on. So I just really enjoy the fact that this is a stock market game that is also not overwrought. Now, as far as my cons are concerned, I've only have one, and it's a small one, and I've already kind of mentioned it as a caveat in my pros section, and that is the understanding how to evaluate the worth of each of the different stocks during a call for dividends. It seemed to me too complicated, but then after I understood that it wasn't too complicated. But getting to that point was frustrating. And so that's why I'm mentioning it as a con right now, because you're probably going to experience some level of that frustration in understanding exactly how everything works. But once we got to that point, it was fine, and it was very kind of second nature, I guess you could say. But getting to that point was difficult. So I understand this is a very light con, and I almost didn't want to mention it, but I felt like I needed to, just because I want you to know that you're probably going to experience some of that. Maybe less likely. Maybe this video will help. I don't know, but you get it. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Irish Gauge a strong 7 out of 10. And the reason that it's a 7 out of 10, because you might be thinking, well, you gave it 3 pros and only 1 con. Why isn't it an 8 or maybe even a 9? Well, that's because this isn't really my kind of game, but this is a fun game that I will enjoy playing, even though it's not my regular kind of game. This is probably the upper ceiling, so to speak, that I want to reach on games like this. If you go too heavier than this or too more complex, I'm just not interested at all. But I do approve of this one because it gives me that feel of a stock market. Hey, I'm playing a stock market game. I must be smart. You know, that kind of thing. But it's really simple to play and really simple to teach, and it's over in an hour or less. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I really do approve of it. I think it's a great little game, but it's not usually my fare. So that's it for me, a 7 out of 10 for Irish Gauge. I really did enjoy it. You need to go ahead and give it a try because I think you'll enjoy it as well. So that's it for me for Irish Gauge. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care now.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.